Babysitters of Redditors, what is funniest NSFW scariest incident that happened when you babysit? A spider was crawling on the ground, so the 3-year-old whipped out his D and started peeing on it. Kid had a seizure. I thought he was throwing a tantrum. I said fine, you can have a cookie, but only one. Then his sister came and told me what was going on. Yeah, that wasn't fun. First time babysitting and his 12-year-old sister has to take the ropes and handle her brother having a seizure. Apparently they weren't all that rare and were pretty mild, but it sure threw me for a loop, especially since I hadn't been informed of this kid's epilepsy. Babysat twin 9-year-old boys a few years ago. The parents didn't even leave the house. They just locked themselves upstairs while I played video games and made dinner for the kids. I had to keep making the games louder to cover up the sounds that were coming out of the bedroom. A mixture of pain and pleasure. Oh, hey, I have a very recent story. Last Saturday night, my husband and I were babysitting my 7-year-old nephew and 2-year-old niece at their house while my sister and her husband went out on one of the only 2 date nights they'd had all summer. All's going well, except for my nephew having a hard time with the crazy ass thunderstorm going on outside. After putting him to bed, I laid in his room for a while talking about the probability of being struck by lightning, how the house is safe, etc. etc. He finally falls asleep. I go downstairs and my husband and I proceed to watch some Rick and Morty online to pass the time. It's about 10 PM, I think. Suddenly there is a huge booming sound and the entire driveway lights up outside of our window. Holy it, the house shook and everything. I ran upstairs to check on the kids. Both are passed out. I couldn't believe it, but was glad that they were both safe, sleeping. Okay. Back downstairs, something doesn't feel right. My husband and I are at the windows, watching the storm, talking ourselves down from the surprise of the loud crash house shaking bright lights event. I decided to check the kids one more time while my husband put on some coffee in the kitchen. Still asleep. Awesome. As I walk down the stairs, I hear my husband say in the most creepy calm voice ever, "Babe, call 911 right now." What? Call 911? We have to get the kids. The house is on fire. Then I start to see the smoke slowly seeping into the kitchen. I'll never forget how fast we ran up to those kids and out of that house. And the smell. Oh my god. By the time we were outside, another car had pulled in after seeing the fire from the street. My sister lives down a long lane. Apparently, lightning had struck the side of the attached garage on the house. We got out without any injuries or smoke inhalation. The first responders came in epic time. I could go on and on about that night, but I'll save you the reading. Most importantly, the kids are safe. But now I question the next time I tell a kid not to be afraid of lightning. TLDR. Last Saturday night, babysat niece and nephew during a lightning thunderstorm. Spend night telling nephew how safe he is, not to worry about the storm. After falling asleep, the garage is struck by lightning. Fire breaks out. Everyone is safe, but Auntie Nikki's advice seems less comforting in hindsight. Edit. To answer some questions regarding the state of the house, more than the fire itself kept to the garage, which is attached to the house. Fortunately it didn't spread, but so much stuff from both the house and garage have to be replaced due to the smoke. Couches, mattresses, toys, clothes, possibly my sister's car. It totally sucks and they haven't been able to come home for days. I mean, the kids' safety was the most important thing. Everything else is just a major pain in the ass but replaceable. Regarding their reactions, more than there's no good way to call someone and tell them that their house has been hit by lightning and is now on fire. Like, I thought they weren't going to believe me. Location, Massachusetts. Also, yes, Rick and Morty is awesome. Wooba-dooba-dub-dub. Babysitting a 2-year-old girl that I worked with at the daycare I taught at. I put her in her crib and I go out to watch TV. When I hear something over the baby monitor, I turn it up and she's whispering, "Row, row, row, row," and then suddenly she screamed super loud. She kept doing this over and over, and it got creepier and creepier until I remember that we had just taught the kids in the daycare a new verse to row, row, row your boat. If you see a crocodile, don't forget to scream, and then everyone screams. I felt so bad for teaching her that. She must have freaked her parents out a lot. When I was 16 I was babysitting my cousin's 4-year-old. He and I were briefly speaking on the phone, and when I got off the line, I could not find her anywhere. Needless to say, I lost my it and freaked the duck out. I knew that her favorite game was hide and go seek, so I started wandering around the house and playfully saying, "Where is she? Is she in the kitchen? Silence. Is she in the bathroom? Silence. Is she in the closet?" And from the closet I hear, "No." I babysit this funny as duck British kid. Her parents are the absolute coolest and always told me to feel free to bring friends over. One night, brought over my boyfriend, a bearded dude with long hair and a fear of children. She told me she was scared of him. I went upstairs to put her sister to bed. Before you guys say how mean I am for leaving her with someone she told me she was afraid of, I told her to join me and she refused. Flash forward 10 minutes later and I'm back downstairs where I find her braiding his hair and telling him she loves him. He was definitely more afraid. Edit. Just remembered another hilarious story with the same kid. One evening I was giving her a drink. She requested a bowl of milk and a bowl of water. She's a weirdo and I encouraged that, so I gave them to her. She took them to the living room, put them on the floor, and asked me to make a video of her being a cat. Now I have this video on my phone of her drinking from bowls of milk and water and screeching, "Meow, I'm a cat." Her parents loved it and I'm pretty sure they forwarded it to the grandparents. Ha 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 ha. You can choose to believe me or not, but I was a victim of circumstances. My friends were going out, but I was full of cold and didn't have the energy. I get a call from a neighbor asking if I could babysit that night. It was a no-brainer really. Just sit on the couch and watch TV. It's worth noting here that this was when Sky TV had not long come out in the UK. You could get channels from all over Europe too and we didn't have it in our house, so it was a good opportunity to watch some new movies. Anyway, so the kids go to bed. I watch TV and as the evening wears on, I start channel hopping and stumbled across Jaws 3 in German. I was quite enjoying the poor quality voices etc. Then drifted off into a deep sleep. I was woken around midnight by the owner who told me it was time to go. However, Jaws 3 was no longer on the TV. It was a strange German porno involving 2 young ladies and a farmer. Now if that wasn't bad enough, on the floor next to me was a bunch of scrunched up tissues I'd been using to blow my nose on. I didn't even bother to explain. Someone hacked the video baby monitor while I was nannying once. I put the kid down for a nap and went down to make myself lunch. With the monitor set up on the kitchen counter, I heard some small noises from it, but assumed it was him moving around in his sleep. Then the guy hacking into it started singing Rockabye Baby in this creepy childlike voice. I ran up to the kid's room thinking someone had broken in and freaked the duck out. Took me about 10 minutes to realize it was coming from the monitor. Guy kept singing as I was panicking. The asshole. And I unplugged it. The parents flipped when I told them and got the cops involved. A few days later they found out it was the neighbor. Some 30-something dude living in his parents' basement. When I was 21 I was a nanny for a 4-year-old girl. We had finished swimming at their country club and were in the locker room changing. As I was changing my top she looks at me and says my mom has those too. I asked her what does she have and she said breasts. I didn't say anything and just continued getting dressed. She paused for a second and then said except hers are really long. I had to bite my cheek to keep from laughing. I babysat for a single mom down the road. She was going out with her new BF. Cute great 5-year-old boy, though very timid. I myself was 15 at the time. Night's going fine. We decide to do some arts and crafts. He gets up and runs over to grab some scissors and runs back. I say hold up, slow down. You shouldn't run with those, it's bad and dangerous. He instantly drops the scissors and starts sobbing. Turns around and defeatedly heads towards the kitchen. I'm completely baffled and follow him to the kitchen. I say I'm confused and what's going on? He points to a drawer and through sobs over 20 seconds he manages to struggle out its sob and sob there. It's a silverware drawer, but prominent on the top is a large knife which I can see some flecks of blood on. I turn around to him and he's taken his pants off. On his legs I see countless cuts. Some scars looking years old, some only a day or two old. So I'm a weird mix of confusion, fear, pity, and sadness. He had been cut on as punishment for any little thing he ever did wrong. I close the drawer and kneel down and tell him I'm so sorry, I would never hurt him, and to put his pants back on. It takes maybe 20 minutes for me to console him to stop crying and calm down and believe that I'm not going to cut him and this isn't a test. I get some treats for us, let him choose a TV show, and sit him down on the couch. I say I need to make a quick call, but I'll be right around the corner and back ASAP. He agrees, and I call the cops. On emergency though, so it'll be a while. I let them know he's still very shaky and I'd like to hang up and go be with him. I hang up, but before I do I decide to deadbolt all the doors just in case. Lucky for me too, because mom gets home before the cops. I give the kid my Discman and headphones and send him upstairs so he can't hear any of the ensuing unpleasantness. I go to the door and tell her she's not getting in until the cops arrive. She freaks out, screams at me, and pounding in the door yelling to be let in, ordering the kid to let her in or it'll happen. She goes around to all the doors and tries them. Just as she grabs a brick and approaches a window, the cops pull in. She drops the brick and goes to them in hysterics, claiming I threatened to hurt her boy and I'm doing terrible things. I open the door and approach. Cops yell at me to stay where I am. One of them runs up to me and grabs hold. I do not resist and explain the situation. Halfway through mommy screams at me, liar. You monster, you hurt my boy. Other cop manages to get her to stop screaming at me, and I convince my cop to step further away so I can finish. Cops converse and tell me I'm going to be cuffed and put in the cruiser until medical services get there to inspect the child. I successfully argue that mom and son should not be alone together. Mom is belligerent, you have the culprit all cuffed, you can go now, throw the book at that monster, why are you still here? The entire wait. Medical gets there, inspects the boy, I'm released with apologies and the mom takes my place in cruiser. All that and I didn't even get paid. Edit. Thanks for all the kind words. Everyone saying I did perfectly or had to make so many decisions. I made one decision, which was to help the boy. It wasn't that hard from a what to do perspective. Mostly I was in shock and scrambling to do anything, and that was all I could think of. And there were many things I could have done better. I should have stayed on the phone with police. I should have demanded they get there sooner. I should have thought of the need for medical and let them know. And I obviously should have done something better to where the police didn't feel the need to cuff me in a cruiser. Still, I think I did mostly okay. And I hope the boy is better off now. I let my parents babysit my daughters once. When we came home, the kids were sitting close together in another part of the house. After my parents left, it was explained to us that our 2-year-old spilled milk on the table and grandpa lost it. First and last time. I was babysitting a 2-year-old. He was playing on the couch pillows instead of a back cushion. My couch has a bunch of pillows. All of a sudden he started crying. He bumped his head on the corner of the couch, not sharp, and it started to profusely bleed. I grabbed him and sat him on the counter so I could see where it was coming from. Just under his eyebrow was gashed open. I cleaned it up as best as I could, gave him some children's Tylenol, and called his mom. They were able to glue it back together. I felt so bad. Had a babysitter when I was like 6 or 7 every few nights. She used to walk around in a thong, and one time I asked if I could see her boobs, so she showed them to me. Pretty sure if I was a rat bastard she could have gotten in huge trouble, but a pimp never snitches. A lot less 6 than I anticipated. I was babysitting 2 brothers. One was maybe 7 and the other about 3. I should mention that the dad was a contractor and he had a lot of random construction things in the backyard. The 7-year-old picked up a doll that was about 4 feet long and pretended to be a Jedi with a double-bladed lightsaber. He wound up smacking his brother in the face and the 3-year-old was flung across the patio. The air that kid got was pretty impressive and I laughed. Until I saw that the kid was actually hurt, and then I felt kind of bad. The 3-year-old was a little it and he had been torturing me and the older brother for the past hour though, so I didn't feel that bad. Babysat nannied for 3 kids the summer after my freshman year of college. One day the middle child ran off to play at the neighbors without telling me. Her mom and I agreed to ground her until the following day was over. A day and a half total. She had to stay home inside and clean her room. On that next afternoon, about an hour before her mom was to come home and she was to be grounded, she pulled a knife out and pointed it at me because I was ruining her life and brainwashing her mother. She chased me around the kitchen a few times before I just grabbed her arm and yanked the knife out. When I did that, I was apparently abusing her. The little it was used to getting her way, and thankfully I was off to my sophomore head of college 2 weeks later. I was babysitting this kid and he takes me to the computer to show me his cool computer game. Turns out it was a free demo disc of a flight simulator game. And it just looped through a 3-minute video of the game. And the kid had no idea he wasn't actually controlling the plane at all. Haha. Dumb kid. They also had a really old, skeletal black cat that I didn't even know existed until the kids had gone to bed and I was alone in their creepy family room, and out comes this cat out of nowhere looking like death. When I was 13, I had a summer job babysitting 3 siblings, a 5-year-old girl, a 2-year-old boy, a baby boy just a few months old. One day, the 5-year-old really wanted to ride her bike, so I let her zip around the driveway for a while. When she was done, I told her to make sure she put her bike away in the garage while I took the boys inside. A few minutes later, I heard some crying coming from downstairs and didn't think much of it, thinking she closed the garage door and maybe it was dark and she was afraid, and she didn't come upstairs. I went down to see what was wrong. Turns out she couldn't reach the switch to close the garage door. She stood on one of her brother's ride-on car toys, which rolled out from under her, and she fell and cut her leg on a pane of glass that was nearby. Blood, oh so much blood. She got some stitches and her leg was put in a massive bandage for a while. The parents didn't blame me, but to this day I've felt bad about what happened. I posted this the other day. I babysit my cousin 2 kids pretty much every other Friday night so he and his wife can have some time alone and out of the house. Their kids are 2 and 6 months, so they have video monitors in each of their rooms and I pretty much watch the monitors and read or watch TV. Roughly a month ago I heard talking coming out of one of the monitors. It was a man's voice and he kept saying over and over again, "It's okay. Go back to sleep. I'm here," and I could see a figure standing over the crib in the 6-month-old's room. I freaked out thinking someone has broken it. They had a break-in around Christmas time and the guy was never caught. I called the police and my cousin and crept upstairs with a knife to protect myself and the babies. No one was upstairs and both kids were sound asleep. Needless to say, I was thoroughly freaked out until the police and my cousin came out. It didn't help that they lived in an older home and everything creaked. Fast forward to last week, the exact same thing happened to my cousin during the day while the kids are napping. But since it was daytime, the video monitor gave off a better picture of the room. Apparently the one monitor in the 6-month-old's room switches over to the neighbor's monitor every once in a while. The voice I heard was that of his next door neighbor soothing their crying baby who is around the same age. I was babysitting 2 little girls at their parents' house when I was about 15. We were sitting in the living room watching the Disney Channel when suddenly the front door handle starts moving and someone tries to come in. I didn't lock the door after the parents left, so they were able to walk right in. Luckily, the family also had 5 dogs, all large breeds, that immediately jumped into action and ran towards the front door barking bloody murder. The front door only opened about half an inch before it was pulled shut. I jumped up and locked the doors and windows. It scared the shit out of the 3 of us. I checked to see if there was anyone outside running away, but didn't see anyone. I don't know what would have happened without those dogs. I once babysat a brother and sister. The boy was probably 11-12, probably old enough to take care of himself and his sister while his parents went on date night, and just locked himself in the video gaming room the entire night. I had a blast with a girl. She was super cute and adorable, but she had a curfew. Bedtime came. I made her change and shower and go to bed. I noticed the parents had a baby monitor in her room, which seemed strange, considering she was like 6-8. So I went downstairs and turned on the television and planned on just chilling in front of that until the parents got home. The daughter gets up and starts making noise and talking, heard by me through the baby monitor. Being a semi-paranoid teenager, I went upstairs and put her back to bed. This proceeded to happen numerous times. I went to ask the brother what his recommendations were at a time like this and his response was, "Oh, mom and dad turned the light so she can't turn it on and just lock her in there. capital I. What? I thought that couldn't possibly correct. But eventually, I gave it a shot. I turned her fan so she couldn't turn the light on using the switch and closed the door. She went to bed, defeated. When the parents got home, they asked about how the kids were, and I mentioned that their daughter kept wanting to stay up. They then proceeded to relay to me the exact instructions the son had told me. Turns out, this was a common problem in their household, and this was a typical way of handling it. It's been a whole hour now, and still no posting of a pervy dad with babysitter action. I don't know if I should feel relieved or just put the lotion and tissues away. Babysat 6-year-old triplets, 2 boys, 1 girl. One of them was a very sweet autistic boy. When I went to check up on the other kids for a second, the other boy had gone up the stairs, took his diaper off, and smeared poop all over the walls. I went to go clean it up with diaper wipes and threw them in the toilet. I forgot that diaper wipes, these ones, aren't flushable. So lo and behold, I had itty wipes overflowing out of the toilet bowl and half itty stain walls. It was a itty day. Whenever I babysat my cousin's kids, I brought over a Dragon Ball Z game that they liked playing at my house, and they lost their it like they'd just won the lottery. My cousin and I were highly amused. When I was young, I babysat a few local kids. It was easy way to get cash and I was one of the oldest in the neighborhood. One of the kids had some kind of severe attachment issues. Once when I was using the bathroom, he broke the door slamming into it. He wanted to be in the same room I was, no matter what. His mother said that wasn't the first time that has happened. It was the last time for me though. Never babysat that kid again. As a teenager, I used to babysit for my neighbors. I quickly discovered that their marriage was on the rocks when one of their daughters told me how daddy had been sleeping in a separate room, and the fact that mommy was coming home every time I was there with a different man. She would always tell me she would only be gone a few hours and would be home no later than midnight. I would end up falling asleep after the kids were put to bed and waking up at 4 AM to the sounds of her arriving home and ravaging some strange man on the front porch and then shooing him off. Her husband was a really nice man that worked his butt off doing night shifts as a nurse at the local hospital, and while he was working she was screwing around. Naturally, I told my mom about it and she informed the husband because she didn't want her daughter being an accomplice in his wife's extramarital activities. They split not long after that and moved away. I babysat these 3 kids one time. 2 boys and a little girl. First night, these kids are angels. I'm all like, well, that was easy. Second night, Lord duck a duck, it was horrible. The boys decide they're not going to bed. I take their DVD player away and it turns into the oldest, 7, screaming, smacking a cup of water off the kitchen table, goes to throw his mom's laptop to the floor. Finally I get him back into his room and then he starts climbing out his bedroom window screaming at the top of his lungs, my mommy is gonna kill me. Because I was trying to get a hold of his mother because I was not putting up with that. Needless to say, I quit that night. Worst kids I've ever babysat. This was the time I stopped babysitting while I was a teenager. First story, a co-worker of my mom's needed a babysitter and I was roped into doing it. I hate kids, so these 2 boys were awful. One kid, about 5, would go to the bathroom and then start screaming that I needed to wipe his butt, which seemed odd because I felt he was old enough to do it, so I didn't do it. Then I was picking up some of the mess and they opened the front door and ran off. They lived in an apartment complex and not in a good part of town. So I am running around looking for the kids. I decided after that night I was never going to have kids. Second story, kid's dad taught him to flip on the couch. They had tile floors, so when he fell off the couch he hit his head pretty hard. I called my mom freaking out and had her come over and take care of the situation. I once babysat these 2 kids a few times who lived around the corner from me who were probably 7 and 3. One day while I was on my way home from school to their house, I found them playing outside and the older girl ran up to me and said she wanted to tell me a secret about her new cat. She told me that when she squeezed its pee-pee that white stuff came out. I just kind of awkwardly said I'm okay and continued walking to their house. I never brought it up again, but it weirded me out for a while whenever I looked at her cat.